Elon Musk confronts the professor who said he'd never succeed. What happens next is shocking. The lecture hall at Stanford University was packed to capacity, buzzing with excitement as students eagerly awaited the arrival of one of the most polarizing figures of the modern era, Elon Musk. Known for his groundbreaking work in space exploration, electric vehicles, and artificial intelligence, Musk had become a symbol of innovation and audacity. But today's visit wasn't about unveiling a new rocket or discussing Tesla's latest advancements. Instead, it was part of a special guest series aimed at inspiring young minds to dream bigger and push harder. As Musk walked onto the stage, wearing his signature black jacket and jeans, the audience erupted into applause. He smiled faintly, waving before taking his seat across from Dr. Evelyn Carter, a renowned professor of engineering and entrepreneurship who would moderate the discussion. Dr. Carter was known for her sharp wit and no-nonsense approach, making her a perfect match for someone as unconventional as Musk. "Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Musk," Dr. Carter began, her tone warm but professional. "Your journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. But let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to pursue such ambitious goals?" Musk leaned forward slightly, his piercing gaze scanning the room. "Well, I've always believed that humanity needs to think beyond the present," he replied thoughtfully. "Whether it's sustainable energy, space travel, or AI, my goal has always been to solve problems that impact our future." The conversation flowed smoothly until Dr. Carter posed a question that seemed to catch Musk off guard. "There's a rumor," she said, her voice tinged with curiosity, "that during your time at Queen's University in Canada, and later at Penn, you faced significant skepticism from some of your professors. They reportedly told you that your ideas were impractical and that you'd never succeed. Is there any truth to that?" A flicker of emotion crossed Musk's face, something between amusement and reflection. For a moment he didn't respond, seemingly lost in thought. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced the entire hall. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "There was one professor in particular who made it very clear that he thought I was wasting my time and everyone else's. He called my ideas childish fantasies and told me I'd amount to nothing if I didn't focus on more realistic pursuits." The room fell eerily quiet as the audience absorbed his words. Many students exchanged glances, unsure how to react. Was this a rare glimpse into the doubts and struggles behind Musk's meteoric rise? Dr. Carter pressed further, clearly intrigued. "Did that criticism affect you, or did it fuel your determination?" Musk chuckled softly, though there was no humor in his expression. "At first it stung," he admitted. "I was young, still figuring things out. But over time, I realized something important. Failure isn't fatal, it's feedback. That professor may have doubted me, but his words forced me to dig deeper, to prove not just to him but to myself that I could make those fantasies real." Before Dr. Carter could respond, an unexpected figure emerged from the wings of the stage. The man was older now, with graying hair and glasses perched on the edge of his nose, but his presence commanded attention. It was Professor Harold Langley, the very man Musk had just referenced. "I hope you don't mind me interrupting," Langley said, addressing both Musk and the audience. His tone was calm, but laced with tension. "When I heard Elon was speaking here today, I felt compelled to attend. After all, it's not every day you get to confront someone whose success proves you wrong." The crowd gasped audibly, murmuring among themselves as Musk turned to face Langley. There was no animosity in his expression, only curiosity. "Professor Langley," Musk greeted him evenly, rising to shake his hand. "It's been a long time." Langley nodded, hesitating briefly before speaking. "Indeed it has, and I must admit I underestimated you. Not just your ambition, but your resilience. Back then, I thought I was guiding you toward practicality. Now I see that sometimes the world needs dreamers like you to challenge what's possible." His admission hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. The students watched intently, sensing the gravity of the moment. Musk studied Langley for a long beat, his expression unreadable. "You weren't entirely wrong," Musk finally said, surprising everyone. "Some of my ideas were impractical, at least at the time, but without people like you pushing back, forcing me to refine and rethink, I might not have gotten where I am today. The tension dissolved as Langley exhaled deeply, visibly moved by Musk's response. Still, he added with a wry smile, I stand by my belief that dreaming big is meaningless unless you're willing to put in the work, and judging by what you've accomplished, I suppose you proved me right about that too. Musk laughed softly, extending his hand once more. Agreed. Thank you for challenging me even when it hurt. Without challenges, there's no growth. As the two men shook hands, the audience erupted into applause, many rising to their feet. The interaction was more than just a reunion. It was a powerful reminder that doubt and adversity, while painful, can often serve as catalysts for greatness. But as Musk returned to his seat, a knowing smile played on his lips. This wasn't the end of the story. It was merely the beginning. Little did anyone know, Musk had planned a surprise that would leave the entire audience, and Professor Langley, speechless. Hey, if you love emotional and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It really helps us bring you more incredible stories. And don't forget to comment below. What's your favorite moment? Let's talk. The applause in the lecture hall gradually subsided, but the energy remained electric. While the handshake between Elon Musk and Professor Harold Langley had been a moment of reconciliation, it was clear that unresolved emotions lingered beneath the surface. Dr. Evelyn Carter seized the opportunity to delve deeper, sensing the audience's hunger for more insight into this unexpected reunion. Professor Langley, she began, turning her attention to the older man, you mentioned earlier that you underestimated Elon's potential. Can you elaborate on what led to that assessment? Was it purely skepticism about his ideas, or was there something else at play? Langley adjusted his glasses, clearly uncomfortable under the spotlight. For a moment he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. To be honest, he admitted, his voice tinged with regret, it wasn't just about his ideas. At the time, I thought Elon lacked focus. He jumped from one ambitious project to another without fully committing to any single path. In my experience, that kind of restlessness often leads to failure. Musk listened intently, his expression neutral but attentive. When Langley finished, he leaned forward slightly, addressing both the professor and the audience. He's right to an extent, Musk acknowledged. Back then, I was all over the map, working on everything from video games to renewable energy concepts. But looking back, I realize now that my so-called restlessness was actually a strength. It allowed me to see connections others missed and approach problems from unconventional angles. Langley nodded slowly, though his posture betrayed lingering doubt. Perhaps, he conceded, but ambition alone doesn't guarantee success. You needed discipline, resources, and frankly a bit of luck to turn those dreams into reality. The comment struck a nerve, not just with Musk, but with several students in the audience who had faced similar criticisms themselves. One brave young woman raised her hand, eager to ask a question. Mr. Musk, she began, her voice trembling slightly. How did you keep going when people like Professor Langley told you your ideas were impossible? Didn't their doubts ever make you second-guess yourself? Musk smiled faintly, leaning back in his chair. Of course they did, he replied candidly. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if everyone else was right, if I really was chasing fantasies. But here's the thing. Doubt is paralyzing only if you let it be. Instead of letting it stop me, I used it as fuel. Every no pushed me closer to finding a way to say yes. His words resonated deeply with the crowd, earning murmurs of agreement and admiration. Yet, as inspiring as his response was, it also highlighted the complexity of his relationship with Langley. The professor's critiques hadn't been malicious. They were rooted in decades of academic rigor and traditional thinking. But they had also planted seeds of insecurity in a young Musk, forcing him to constantly prove himself. Dr. Carter sensed the underlying tension and decided to steer the conversation toward a different angle. Elon, she said gently, is there a specific moment during your journey when you felt like you'd finally silenced those early critics? Or has their skepticism continued to follow you throughout your career? Musk exhaled sharply, his gaze distant as he reflected on the question. Honestly, I don't think I've ever fully silenced them, he admitted. Even today, there are plenty of people who still think SpaceX will fail, or that Tesla is doomed. And honestly, that's fine. Critics serve an important purpose. They challenge us to stay sharp, to innovate faster, to work harder. Without them, we risk becoming complacent. Langley nodded approvingly, though his expression remained guarded. I suppose that's true, he mused aloud. Still, I wonder, do you ever feel burdened by the weight of expectation? You're not just building companies, you're shaping industries, even entire fields of study. Does it ever feel overwhelming? For the first time since the discussion began, Musk's confidence wavered slightly. He glanced down at his hands, collecting his thoughts before responding. Yes, he said softly, surprising many in the room. There are days when the pressure feels unbearable, when failures pile up and it seems like the world is against you. But what keeps me going isn't just ambition, it's purpose, knowing that the work we're doing matters, that it could improve lives or even save humanity. That's what drives me forward. The vulnerability in his voice struck a chord with everyone present, including Langley. The professor shifted uncomfortably in his seat, visibly affected by Musk's candor. After a long pause, he spoke again, his tone softer this time. "I misjudged you, Elon," Langley confessed, his voice heavy with remorse. "I saw brilliance, yes, but I failed to recognize the depth of your conviction. If I'm being honest, part of me hoped you'd succeed, even while I doubted you publicly. I wanted to believe in you, but, well, I suppose I let my own biases get in the way." The admission hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Musk studied Langley for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he extended his hand once more. "Thank you for saying that," he said simply. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. And honestly, your criticism played a role in getting me here. So, in a way, I owe you." The audience erupted into applause, moved by the unexpected display of mutual respect. Yet, as heartfelt as the moment was, Musk wasn't done yet. As the clapping died down, he stood up, signaling that he had something else to share, something neither Langley nor the audience could have anticipated. "Before we wrap up," Musk announced, his voice carrying a note of excitement, "I want to leave you all with one final surprise." He gestured toward the side of the stage, where a large screen descended from the ceiling. On it appeared a rendering of a sleek, futuristic spacecraft emblazoned with the words, "Project Horizon." "This," Musk explained, his eyes gleaming with pride, "is our next big step, a mission to establish a sustainable human presence on Mars within the next decade. And Professor Langley," he turned to face the older man, his tone warm but firm, "I'd like to personally invite you to join us, not as a critic, but as an advisor. Your perspective, even your skepticism, could help ensure we succeed where others might fail." The room fell silent, the weight of the offer sinking in. Langley stared at Musk, clearly stunned by the invitation. For a brief moment he seemed unsure how to respond. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. "I may be skeptical," Langley said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "but I'm also curious. And if there's one thing I've learned today, it's that curiosity can lead to incredible discoveries. Count me in." As the audience erupted into cheers once more, Musk extended his hand, sealing the partnership. What had begun as a confrontation had transformed into an alliance, one that promised to push the boundaries of innovation even further. Wow, this story is getting intense. If you're enjoying it so far, don't forget to tap that like button and let us know in the comments what you think will happen next. Also, share this video with a friend who loves celebrity stories. The announcement of Professor Langley joining SpaceX as an advisor sent shockwaves through both the academic and tech communities. While many praised the collaboration as a bold step toward bridging traditional thinking with futuristic innovation, others were quick to criticize. Skeptics questioned whether Langley's old-school methods would clash with Musk's relentless drive for disruption, or worse, slow down progress on Project Horizon. For Langley, the transition was far from easy. Accustomed to the structured environment of academia, he found himself overwhelmed by the fast-paced, high-stakes world of SpaceX. Engineers moved at breakneck speed, iterating designs in days rather than months. Meetings often devolved into heated debates, with team members challenging each other's ideas without hesitation. It was a culture unlike anything Langley had experienced before. One particularly tense evening, after a marathon brainstorming session that yielded little consensus, Langley approached Musk in his office. "Elon," he began, his tone weary but direct, "I need to know, am I truly contributing here or am I just a figurehead? Because if I'm being honest, I feel more like a liability than an asset." Musk looked up from his desk, setting aside the blueprints he'd been reviewing. For a moment, he studied Langley silently, weighing his words. Finally, he gestured for the professor to sit down. "You're not a figurehead, Harold," Musk replied firmly. "In fact, your perspective is exactly what we need right now. Everyone here is brilliant, no doubt, but brilliance can sometimes blind us to potential pitfalls. You see things differently, and that's invaluable." Langley sighed, rubbing his temples. "But how do I keep up? These engineers are speaking a language I barely understand. Half the time, I feel like I'm holding them back." Musk leaned forward, his expression softening. "You're not holding anyone back. If anything, You're forcing us to slow down and think critically about our decisions. That's a good thing. Progress without reflection is reckless. Despite Musk's reassurance, Langley couldn't shake the feeling that he was out of his depth. Doubts crept in, not just about his ability to contribute, but about whether he'd made the right decision in accepting the role. He confided in Dr. Evelyn Carter, who had remained in touch since the lecture at Stanford. I underestimated him once, Langley admitted over coffee. Now I'm afraid I'll do it again, or worse, fail him entirely. Dr. Carter listened patiently, her gaze thoughtful. Harold, you've spent your entire career teaching students to embrace uncertainty. Isn't it time you took your own advice? This isn't about proving yourself, it's about learning alongside them. Her words resonated deeply, though they didn't immediately ease Langley's anxieties. Still, he resolved to push forward, determined to honor the opportunity Musk had given him. Meanwhile, tensions within the SpaceX team began to rise. Some engineers resented Langley's presence, viewing him as a relic of outdated methodologies. Others, however, welcomed his input, finding value in his cautious approach. One young engineer, Priya Patel, became a vocal advocate for Langley, defending his contributions during contentious meetings. Look, Priya argued during one such debate, we are all guilty of tunnel vision sometimes. Professor Langley forces us to consider risks we might otherwise overlook. That's not a bad thing. It's necessary. Her defense earned grudging respect from some, but resistance persisted. The divide within the team threatened to derail progress on Project Horizon, leaving Musk caught in the middle. Known for his hands-on management style, he struggled to balance the competing perspectives while keeping the project on track. One evening, after another exhausting day of conflict, Musk invited Langley to join him on the roof of SpaceX headquarters. The two men stood side by side, gazing up at the stars shimmering above Los Angeles. I never imagined this would be so hard, Langley confessed, breaking the silence. I thought I could adapt, but maybe I was wrong to accept your offer. Musk turned to him, his expression serious but kind. Do you remember what you told me back at Stanford about dreaming big being meaningless without discipline? Well, the reverse is also true. Discipline without vision leads nowhere. We need both, Harold. And right now, we're figuring out how to blend them. Langley nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of Musk's words. What happens if we can't? He asked quietly. If this partnership fails? Musk smiled faintly, his eyes still fixed on the sky. Then we'll learn from it and try again. Failure isn't the end. It's part of the process, but I have faith in us. Together, we'll get there. Their conversation marked a turning point, not just for Langley, but for the entire team. Over the following weeks, Musk implemented changes designed to foster collaboration between traditionalists like Langley and innovators like Priya. Weekly roundtables encouraged open dialogue, while cross-functional workshops helped bridge gaps in understanding. Slowly but surely, the dynamic shifted. Langley began to find his footing, using his expertise to identify critical safety measures and refine operational protocols. His contributions, once dismissed as overly cautious, proved instrumental in addressing vulnerabilities in the spacecraft design. Even skeptics within the team begrudgingly acknowledged his value. But just as momentum seemed unstoppable, disaster struck. During a routine test flight of a prototype lander, a catastrophic failure occurred, resulting in significant damage and delays. The incident reignited doubts about Langley's involvement, with critics blaming his conservative approach for stifling innovation. Facing mounting pressure, Langley considered stepping down, believing his presence had become a liability. But before he could make a decision, Musk called an emergency meeting. This setback isn't on any one person, Musk declared, his voice cutting through the tension. It's on all of us. For rushing, for assuming, for failing to communicate effectively. We'll fix it together, or we won't fix it at all. His leadership galvanized the team, inspiring renewed determination. Under Musk's guidance, they worked tirelessly to analyze the failure, incorporating lessons learned into the next iteration of the design. Langley played a pivotal role in the process, advocating for rigorous testing procedures that ultimately prevented future mishaps. As the project regained momentum, Langley realized something profound. His skepticism wasn't a hindrance, it was a strength. By challenging assumptions and demanding accountability, he had helped create a safer, more reliable mission plan. And in doing so, he had earned the respect of even his harshest critics. Yet the journey was far from over. With the launch date looming closer, one final challenge awaited, a challenge that would test everything they had built together. We're about to reveal something shocking, but before we do, Take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an emotional story like this one. And tell us, if you were in this situation, what would you do? The final challenge came just weeks before the scheduled launch of Project Horizon, a critical component of the spacecraft. The heat shield designed to protect astronauts during re-entry failed a high-stress simulation test. The failure wasn't just a technical setback, it was a potential deal-breaker for the mission. Without a reliable heat shield, the spacecraft couldn't safely return from Mars, rendering the entire project moot. Panic rippled through the SpaceX team as engineers scrambled to diagnose the issue. Musk called an emergency meeting, gathering his top minds, including Langley, in the war room. Tensions were high, with some team members pointing fingers while others struggled to propose viable solutions. It was clear that resolving this problem would require not only technical expertise, but also unity, a quality that had been in short supply throughout the project. Langley, who had spent countless hours poring over the spacecraft's design, raised a hand hesitantly. "I think I know what's causing the failure," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. All eyes turned to him, skepticism mingling with curiosity. "Go on," Musk urged, leaning forward intently. "The material composition of the heat shield is innovative, yes," Langley explained, pulling up schematics on the screen, "but we underestimated how it interacts with extreme thermal gradients during descent. Essentially, the stress fractures aren't due to the material itself. They're occurring because of inconsistencies in the manufacturing process." The room fell silent as Langley's analysis sank in. Priya Patel, one of the lead engineers responsible for the heat shield, frowned deeply. "If that's true," she said slowly, "then we've been focusing on the wrong variables all along." Musk nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "So how do we fix it?" he asked, directing the question at both Langley and Priya. Langley glanced at Priya, their earlier disagreements now overshadowed by shared urgency. "We need to revisit the fabrication protocols," Langley suggested. "Specifically, we should adjust the cooling rates post-molding to reduce residual stresses, but it'll take time and precision." Priya stepped forward, her tone collaborative for the first time. "And we'll need to run additional simulations to validate any changes," she added. "But if Professor Langley's hypothesis is correct, this could be the breakthrough we've been looking for." Musk didn't hesitate. "Do whatever it takes," he instructed firmly. "Resources, manpower, overtime, I don't care. Fix it." What followed was a grueling 2-week sprint, during which Langley and Priya worked side by side, bridging their differing approaches to engineering. Langley's methodical attention to detail complemented Priya's creative problem-solving, creating a synergy neither had anticipated. Slowly but surely, they refined the heat shield design, incorporating Langley's recommendations while leveraging Priya's cutting-edge techniques. Finally, the day of the retest arrived. The entire team gathered in the control room, watching anxiously as the prototype underwent another round of simulations. When the results came back successful, the room erupted into cheers. Langley and Priya exchanged a look of mutual respect, their past conflicts forgotten in the wake of triumph. With the heat shield issue resolved, preparations for the launch accelerated. On the morning of the historic event, thousands of spectators gathered at Cape Canaveral, joined by millions more tuning in online. Among them was Dr. Evelyn Carter, who had flown in to witness the culmination of the journey she'd helped document months earlier. As the countdown began, Musk stood alongside Langley near the launch pad, both men visibly moved by the magnitude of the moment. "Whatever happens next," Musk said quietly, "know that none of this would have been possible without you." Langley shook his head, emotion thick in his voice. "No, Elon, this is your vision. I'm just grateful to have played a small part in it." When the engines ignited and the spacecraft soared skyward, the crowd roared in awe. For Musk, it was validation of decades of relentless pursuit. For Langley, it was redemption, a chance to prove that even skeptics can contribute to greatness. And for everyone watching, it was a testament to the power of collaboration, resilience, and belief in the impossible. In the days that followed, media outlets hailed the launch as a defining moment in human history. Yet the most poignant reflection came from Langley himself, who penned an op-ed titled, "The Value of Doubt." "In my youth, I prided myself on certainty," he wrote. "I believed that skepticism was a tool for dismantling folly. What I've learned since working with Elon Musk is that doubt, when channeled constructively, can build as much as it deconstructs. My greatest mistake wasn't underestimating him. It was failing to recognize that ambition tempered by accountability is the true engine of progress." The article went viral, cementing Langley's legacy not as a critic but as a champion of balanced innovation. Meanwhile, Musk continued to push boundaries, using Project Horizon as a stepping stone toward even bolder endeavors. Years later, when asked about the professor who once doubted him, Musk smiled knowingly. "Harold taught me something invaluable," he said, "that success isn't about silencing critics. It's about proving them right in ways they never expected." Their partnership became a case study in leadership programs worldwide, illustrating how opposing perspectives, when united by purpose, can achieve the extraordinary. And though Langley eventually returned to academia, he remained a trusted advisor to Musk, ensuring that the lessons of Project Horizon lived on. As the spacecraft carrying humanity's hopes orbited Mars, one truth resonated across generations. Greatness isn't born from agreement. It's forged through challenge, courage, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty. Together, Musk and Langley had proven that even the starkest divides could yield brilliance when bridged by vision and trust. What an incredible story. If you loved it as much as we did, make sure to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Your support helps us bring you even more amazing celebrity stories. And don't forget, new videos every week. See you next time.